This is Andreas, and you're listening to Breakdowns for Breakfast. Oh, yeah.
Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast. I am your host, Danger, and joining me is a fellow that I cannot properly break down an album without, Monster. Say hi, Monster.
Good morning. How's it going?
It's going fine, especially since on this episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast, we are talking about Spiritbox's new album, Tsunami Sea, that was released March 7th, 2025. Now, Monster, where are you with these heavy metal Canadians?
I'm gonna throw it back to you.
Okay.
I want you to tell me how you think I am with this first.
How I think that you think that just...
How do you think I feel about this album?
I think you feel probably pretty similar to me, but I also am not surprised. Would not be surprised because of things that I have to say about this album. If you're very hype on this album and really excited about it. Now, listeners, normally Monster has a hard time keeping it to himself what his opinion is, and he did a good job on this one. So good job, Monster. Yeah. Good job. Now, if we had a crowd, I'd say round of applause for Monster, but we don't have a crowd.
Or if we just had a guy with a lot of buttons that can play some sound effects, like some people do.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't really answer the question. You said I could feel like you do, but then you didn't say how you felt.
Okay.
So you didn't answer my question.
All right. So how I feel is that really, okay. So we did Eternal Blue before, and that album came out in 2021. And then they had two EPs that came out, 2022 and then 2023. And then in 2025, we got this album. I definitely feel like there's been an evolution from Eternal Blue, but I kind of feel like this was very much a sequel to Eternal Blue. There's a good chunk of this album that I like, and there's a good chunk of the album that I just don't like at all.
I guess we're kind of like two girls that go off to college, and
you better be going somewhere with this.
After their first couple of months, they start to, their cycles start to sync up a little bit, and they start to kind of get on the same wavelength, because I agree with most of what you said, except you said it's an evolution from Eternal Blue. I think this is a step back. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sure I heard those EPs like in passing, like a couple of the songs, maybe all of it, I don't know. But for me, being very familiar with Eternal Blue, because we did it for the show, and then listening to this, this feels, I don't know. I've got some reasons why I think it sounds the way it sounds and why I feel the way I feel. But ultimately, I like this one less than Eternal Blue.
Okay, so what I will say is I like Eternal Blue better overall, but there's a part of this album that I like better than Eternal Blue, but there's a chunk of this album that I don't like at all, and I really feel like it's, Spiritbox is just trying some new things, just trying out, kind of stretching their legs into certain markets, and I don't think that they quite hit the mark on those things, but I think that, unfortunately, Spiritbox has become a band that is really good at putting out a good EP, because the two EPs that I mentioned, the 2022 and 2023, those were actually fairly decent. I wouldn't say they are great. So we had Rotoscope in 22 and then The Fear of Fear in 23. And I thought Rotoscope was better. But, going back to where I said it's an evolution from, I do feel like there's a portion of this that is an evolution from. And then I want to say that there's a portion of it that is just them trying something different.
It's interesting that you say try something different, because for me, the try something different is be more like a standard metalcore band and not be as wacky and experimental as they used to be. Because there's a few songs on here that, put it this way, when I listened to Eternal Blue, I was like, this is Spiritbox. And sometimes it's a little bit djenty, sometimes it's a little nu metal, sometimes it's very pop. And on this one, it was like, oh, this sounds like Spiritbox. But that kind of sounds like Issues. And then this sounds like Spiritbox, but that riff kind of sounds like Sleep Token. And so I was finding myself being like, this doesn't sound like a band leading the way. This feels like a band that is sort of like now mixed in the pack. Whereas Eternal Blue era, I thought they were destined to kind of break out and be sort of ahead of the pack. Now, granted, they're playing huge festivals. They've got a big following, so they are, but for me, at least, this feels like a step in the wrong direction.
So I will agree and disagree with you, where I do feel like, okay, I want to try to word this correctly, not to keep from offending you, because I'm never worried about offending you. It's more of just to get my point across.
It's not easy to do anyway.
No, I know that now. Okay, so I feel like this is a step in the right direction to have more of a mass appeal, but, I understand what you mean by it's a step back, because it does feel like they are kind of leaning into some of the sounds that have existed, but I feel like there's enough of Spiritbox here, and I feel like there's no more of I Wrestled a Bear left in Spiritbox. There's just none of that to be here at all.
I think there's one section that I clocked on a later track where there's a guitar thing in the background that's doing that has that feel to it. That's it.
I think I know what you're talking about, or which one you're talking about, because I think I didn't put I Wrestled a Bear once, but I do talk about that part of it. But yeah, so I understand what you mean. I don't fully agree with it, because I genuinely liked part of this album more than, but I do feel like there's enough of that sound that everybody else is doing. Like we talked about before, there was a time period where like every band in the metalcore scene sounded like Memphis May Fire, because they put out a sound that was friendly and people liked, and so other bands flocked to it. And I kind of feel like Spiritbox is leaning towards that, but I feel like Spiritbox has enough of where they aren't that, if that makes any sense. Am I making any sense at all tonight? Or this morning? Sorry, this morning. It's early.
Yeah. Well, you're making as little as usual, so you're fine. You're in your wheelhouse.
All right, cool. As long as I'm consistent,
Okay, so all right. So doing a little bit of research. This might constitute a second breakfast episode if it was longer, but it's literally like 3 sentences, so I'm going to throw it out here.
All right.
Did you hear about the beef between Spiritbox and Ronnie Radke?
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up at a certain point, but since we're here now, let's go for it.
Well, I want to bring it up now because he mentioned something that is exactly where I'm at on this. So, long story short, when they announced the popular Mons tour that Falling in Reverse was headlining, Spiritbox was supposed to do like 6 shows. And Spiritbox fans got real kind of like upset about it, and they didn't want them associated with Ronnie Radke. And, Ronnie Radke's a bit of a polarizing figure these days. So It is what it is. So basically, if you know anything about Radke, of course, he fired back. He had some stuff to say.
As he does.
Yeah, and he sort of went off on Ollie Sykes from Bring Me the Horizon, who I've never listened to. I don't know anything about them, really.
I've listened to him. I don't care for him.
But I know he's sort of a big personality, Ollie Sykes. That's a big name. So, and he came out and said this just super praise about the Spiritbox album. And so Radke basically called him out and said, no, this is like derivative, generic metalcore. It's not anything exciting. It's not anything refreshing. And he said, and this is the part that I agree with him, says, this album is weak and poorly mixed. And I think that's my problem. This sounds like a muddy mess in a lot of places.
Okay, that's interesting because, all right, so this is one that I didn't feel like I got anything better out of headphones, and so I just kind of stopped listening. I think I put it like 2 songs in headphones, and it just stopped. So most of the time I listened to this was just through speakers or in my car, and I didn't really get the muddy mess quite like we have on past episodes, on past albums.
In headphones, it's too abrasive because there is no frequency that is not filled with a sound, and it is very like all encompassing. It's a little bit too much for headphones. Now, when you listen to it on speakers, depending on the distance of the speakers, sometimes you can't hear Courtney's voice very well because it's buried in the mix. And then other times,
I will say there's certain places where her clean vocals are not mixed very well. And so I'll agree with you on that one.
Yeah, like when she starts doing her like real smooth, clean vocals, sometimes it disappears because of everything else. Now, right before we started recording, I told you that I had stumbled across this reel. I don't know if it was the producer or what, but he was talking about Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera.
Right.
And here's what he said. He was talking about the layers of the, different pieces of the track. And he was talking about the phrase he used was something about people only hear what's in their ears, I think is kind of what he said. And basically what he was saying was everything that you put in there, people are going to hear. And so the kick drum took up all the low frequency. And then the piano lines were taking up other frequencies in higher octaves. And it left this big middle section that was wide open. And that was all Christina's voice. And she was able to basically take full control over all the frequency that people are getting in their ears. And so that song did gangbusters. I mean, It was a huge smash hit. That's why I struggle with this album, because it never breathes, because there might be parts that start off quiet and build, but it never really, there's always a frequency in your ear. There's never okay, we've got this little piece and that little piece, and we're leaving this section blank for some breathing room. No, it's always some kind of production, some kind of background noise mixed in with screaming and completely distorted guitars and double kick. And it's a lot all at the time.
It is a lot, and I think I missed picking up on a lot of that because I did skip headphones on this one. And like I said, there was a few places where I kind of skipped around. I told you. So, okay, for anybody that's listening, we're recording this March 19th. And so, this album hasn't been out that long, but not too long before this, just the other day, Sleep Token released a new album, a new song. And so, Monster and I jumped all over that one. And so I listened to that with your headphones, and then I kind of jumped into this after that. And so that kind of set my mood in a certain place, because you can't not be in a certain mood after listening to Spiritbox or Sleep Token. Damn it.
But again, think about Sleep Token's music. You have these parts that are just vocal and piano. There might be a little bit of string ambiance in the background, but there's a lot of empty space for you to sink yourself into.
Yeah.
There's none of that on here. Even on the slow, quiet parts, there's so much production and other stuff happening that, and I mentioned this on one or two songs specifically, where if they would have just put a little bit of a pause or a part where a couple of the instruments drop out, completely drop out, I don't know, the dynamics could have been more interesting. But as it is, there's not a lot of dynamics on this. Sure, songs are softer, heavier, longer, shorter, faster, whatever. But at the end of the day, they all are just too much, in my opinion.
All right, so you've jumped on the production quite a bit, and so I do want to talk about the people of the band, and then there's something interesting with the production on this one, with the producer, let's put it that way. So we got Courtney LaPlante on vocals, Josh Gilbert on bass, and he did backing vocals on 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, and 11.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that because I heard a deeper voice several times, and I wasn't sure if it was Courtney pitched down, digitized, or if it was a male vocal. And okay, so that makes sense. Okay, cool.
Sure. And then Mike Stringer, her husband, who he played drums, guitar, and he did production and engineering on this. So, and now Courtney and Mike both came from I Wrestled a Bear Once. And then you have a gentleman named Zev Rosenberg on drums. Now, on mixing of this album, you had Zach Cervini. Now, what I think is interesting about Zach is to talk about the mixing on this one. And I guess I didn't really put it together, what you were talking about the frequencies and And, and Christina Aguilera had the pipes to fill in whatever frequency she wanted to. So, but as far as Zach Cervini goes, all right, so he's worked with Simple Plan, Limp Bizkit, Blink-182, All Time Low, Machine Gun Kelly, Youngblood, Bring Me the Horizon, 5 Seconds of Summer, Avicii, Halsey, Good Charlotte, Grimes, Bishop Briggs, Poppy, Bad Omens, Architects, Water Parks, and Sleeping with Sirens. Now, the producer, I guess, listed, I don't know, it's kind of weird because Mike Stringer did so much production on here, but the producer listed here is a gentleman named Dan Bronstein. Now, I want to jump back to Eternal Blue. Now, on Eternal Blue, you had Courtney, and he was Michael at the time, not Mike, but and then you had Zev on drums. But you also had Daniel Bronstein play drums, who produced this album. And so I thought it was an interesting shift in that, and it kind of seems like he, sometimes steps in and plays drums, but always kind of does some sort of production on the album, or the EP or whatever.
Or maybe they kicked him out and told him to come back and mix and master their album, and he was pissed, so he did a shitty job.
Well, Ted Jensen did the mastering on this one. So, but
fair enough.
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that he played drums on a previous Sleep Token or Spiritbox album. I'm going to mix up Spiritbox and Sleep Token all night. Just
great. That'll be fun to edit.
Oh yeah. So I thought it was interesting that he played drums on Eternal Blue, and then now on Tsunami Sea, he has been. It's almost like he was put into okay, you're out here in the room with the kids. Get back in the box.
Yeah.
So and that's fine, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really put a lot of thought into what you were talking about with the frequencies of the production, but it makes a lot of sense on this. I actually talk about how there are the synth sounds that just kind of fill every empty space.
Right. And even a band, I bring up Issues again, because they're, for me at least, 2016, 2014 or something is when they first kind of came on the scene, and they were mixing that huge pop production with those super low tuned guitars screaming, but they would leave those empty spaces and they would leave those quiet moments. And that added to the dynamics of, their albums. They were always a ride, where this one feels it is a ride, but it's like one of those lazy rivers where you just plop down and you just kind of roll through it. It's not a roller coaster that's going to go up and down and dip and turn you around. It's just going to kind of flow. Whereas I thought Eternal Blue, it did do a lot of that. You did have songs that would jump out the gate and smash you like Holy Roller, and then you'd have other songs that were a lot more chill. But I don't know, this one didn't have that for me.
So I watched an interview with Courtney where she was talking about how when they were writing this album, they went into it with, we can't just do another Holy Roller. But I do feel like there is a Holy Roller sequel on here. I actually feel like this is...
No, it thinks it is, but it's not. Oh, no, I know exactly the song you're talking about, and I don't think it's very good.
No, I think it's I think it's a Holy Roller sequel, but a lot of times the sequel is not as good as the original,
right.
But then in cases like Terminator 2, it's better than Terminator. So,
well, that's true. And then there's also, the second part of a trilogy is oftentimes the best of the three.
True. So, are you ready to just jump into this one and talk about it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so track 1, Fata Morgana. And I am unsure of my pronunciation of that. I didn't come across where they said the title of that first song in an interview, so I'm just going off of phonetics there. Fata Morgana.
Speaking of trilogies, does that not sound like a Star Wars character name?
It kind of does. So anyway, it really wasn't shocking that this one started heavy. I mean, I kind of expected it to happen. It did, we got that droning for 6 seconds there in the beginning, but then it just kind of hits with just a heavy ass chunk. And it had those new metal high pitches in it.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. When this song started, I was like, oh boy, because it's just this draggy, sludgy, like the guitars are tuned so low and there's all this like low end in the mix when that guitar riff is like boom, 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 it starts to get into these, again, I hate to sound like a nerd, but like these weird low frequencies that your ears, it stops sounding like notes. It just starts sounding like noise.
Okay,
and then,
all right. So I want to stop you there. You said I don't want to sound like a nerd, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that, like, I've had people ask me about the show and what it's about, and I say we discuss an album in the biggest music nerd way we possibly can.
Okay,
so,
good,
yeah.
good. So then you've got all this low end, and this kind of goes back to the Christina Aguilera thing. Courtney's voice goes right down in there because she starts screaming. So it's like everything is so low but so full that it's kind of overwhelming. And because the tempo is that kind of mid tempo that doesn't really like groove, but it doesn't have a whole lot of energy, this felt like an odd opener to me.
See, I feel like this was a good opener because I feel like this set us up for the sound that really most of this album is.
It does that. It does that for sure.
So, okay. I do want to talk about the bridge in this one. So,
the part that starts at 2:22.
Yeah.
I actually wrote in my notes, hate to sound like a wuss, but for me, I think my favorite part is from 2:22 to 2:52.
Okay, so I actually really enjoyed, I really enjoyed the first half of the song because it was like, okay, I come to Spiritbox for heaviness, and I really like, Courtney's vocals, and I felt like in the chorus, like, her vocals got, like, clean vocal got big. I feel like she was showing off the dirty vocals there in the beginning of this one.
The chorus is good, but it almost feels like two different songs. Like, the verse and the chorus don't feel connected in any way. But yeah, back to the bridge.
Well, actually, what you just said is something that I actually threw in a couple of times. I stopped writing it down because I kind of felt like it was pretty regular that I was putting it, where it felt like, there were like different songs they were kind of putting together and they created parts of this album. But that bridge, the bridge just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's a little jarring, especially since it's so different than what was happening before, but it still kind of worked. It was okay. And then I like the breakdown that comes out of it. It almost like the bridge, like the breakdown eases out of the bridge, and I really like the way that they created the transition there. But I will say, okay, so the last drum hit, so this song ends with guitar chugs and a drum hit. The last drum hit is at 3:55. Why does it ring out so long? Because this song is 4 minutes, 21 seconds. Why does it go on for that long after that? I don't need that.
I'm with you. Again, this feels like an odd opener to me, like, because it's a weird tempo. You do have that kind of jarring bridge that is very different from the rest of the song and kind of different from a lot of the rest of the album. They don't really dig into that clean guitar tone very much. So
no, they don't.
Yeah, I don't. It's very middle of the road. I don't know.
I felt like it was a fine intro, a fine opener, but I do feel like track 2, Black Rainbow, would have been a better intro to the album, a better opener to the album. Although I'm not crazy about Courtney's robotic voice on this one. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
So you're in dorm room 672 as well. That's crazy. I knew we were like rooming together. That's great. I also put that she sounded very robotic.
I'm not even at the same college as you. Okay. You've gone off to state college. I'm at community college. Okay. I'm at a trade school.
I think it's the other way around. Either way, what's funny is I too think she sounds robotic, but I actually like it because she's not screaming, and I've never heard her do that before. So I agree. This one's
But wait, because this one felt like a sequel to Yellow Jacket off of Eternal Blue. And this is where I started to feel like we were getting sequels. And I went back and I listened to Yellow Jacket and then this right after it, and they really feel like they're kind of the same song.
Yeah, okay, I can hear that a little bit. But this one has a cool... So the verses for me is more my speed. You've got kind of like a choppy guitar riff. It's not detuned super low.
Oh, it's detuned.
Well, yeah, they're playing in something ridiculous, I'm sure. Yeah. But it's like that bow, 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 bow. And she's kind of got that weird vocal thing going on. So for me, it kind of like, yeah, this checks out. Like, this is a little bit better for me. But then the rest of it is just, I don't know. Like, it's just more screaming and chugs and dissonant guitars. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. Other than that riff with that robotic voice, there's nothing else about this song that makes it stand out from all the other bands kind of like this.
Okay, so this does feel like a kind of a standard screamy Spiritbox track, but I still liked it enough, and I think I liked it enough. I think I liked it more because the drums are fantastic in this song. And that's where I really feel like, or this is where I really feel like the drums kind of jumped out on this album was track 2, they bring it. But I want to talk about the bridge. And the bridges are something we're going to talk about on this one. Not dissimilar from the Taylor Swift album, but okay. So I feel like the bridge was building the entire time, and it was like it was building up to Hurt Me. But it just didn't quite get there because really all that was out to Hurt Me was where we got the pause and like we got her inhale for a scream, which was cool. But I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't feel like this was the strongest track, but I feel like this would have been a better opener to this album than track 1.
It follows a lot of the same beats as Fata Morgana. What did you say it was?
Fata Morgana, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely Fata.
Fata Morgana.
But it just has a little bit more. I would say the BPMs are probably a couple notches higher. The verse has a little bit of funkiness to it. So yeah, for me, I think it would be a slightly better opener. But I'll be honest with you, the first 2 songs kind of set me up for kind of where we were going to head in for this album, and I wasn't real like excited.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. All right, so let's move on to track 3, Perfect Soul.
And then this one started, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm back in. Because this, to me, is the Spiritbox that I like.
Okay,
because
I think it's
this
funny.
Is very new.
Oh, no, it is. And I think it's funny you say that because I put that riff, I like it, but it feels like if Spiritbox does a butt rock riff.
It is a little butt rock riff. It is. And it feels less butt because it's mixed with so much gent all around it. So it feels like a little bit of a breath of fresh air, that it's not a kind of riff. It's something a little bit more straightforward. But honestly, the opening riff is very new, but the verse, whenever she comes in with that clean vocal over the chuck guitar, that's where, I think Spiritbox can really set themselves apart. The problem is you can barely hear her singing. She sounds great, but it's too low.
Okay, so maybe it's because, I'm at my computer, my speakers are literally about a foot and a half in front of me, and I kind of move them around and all, and it just, I feel like I instinctively just kind of move them to where it feels right for whatever album we're listening to. Sure. And I think I did that here. And so I didn't have a problem with her vocals. I do feel like she could have been bumped up a little bit in the mix, but I didn't have a problem with where her vocals were on this one.
I will say, computer speakers and headphones, the vocals didn't bother me as much, but in the car, she felt very far away. I don't know why. It felt worse in the car.
Honestly, I can't tell you what this one sounded like in the car. I don't remember listening to this one specifically in the car. But okay, I feel like this was the first outing on this album at track 3 of creating a radio-friendly song.
I won't disagree with you, and as a matter of fact, this might ruin the song for you, or you might think I'm crazy, but...
Probably crazy, but go ahead.
There is a sounds like in here that is mind-numbing, and once I heard it, I could never unhear it.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the song There She Goes by Sixpence None the Richer?
Yeah.
Okay. During the chorus, Courtney has this vocal melody that's like, ah, ah, ah. And it sounds exactly like There She Goes. And every time I heard it, I was like, oh, this is like metal Sixpence. It's weird.
I can't say that I made that comparison at all.
Man.
I mean, I know the Sixpence song. Who doesn't know that song? But,
right.
You know, I can't agree with you, but I also can't disagree with you. But
it's one of those nerdy music things where it's like every chord progression's been done. Every melody has been sung. And all we're doing now is trying to rearrange them in the most unique way we can come up with. Right. So inevitably things like this happen. And I love it when it's something like that, where it's this super saccharine pop song and this super heavy metal rock song, and they have similarities. Like, to me, that's fun.
That's fine. I think it would be worse if the sounds like you pulled out was something I absolutely hated, but I liked that era of Sixpence, so it was fun.
And you know what? And I did not play them back to back, so if you put the sound clips in and we hear them back to back, and I could be way off, but my brain, the first time I heard this song, I'm like nodding along and having a good time, and then that melody came in, I was like, hold up, wait a minute, I've heard this before. But going back to the rest of the song, I will say I like that they do the chorus halftime there near the end.
Right.
I always like it when they do that. But cardinal sin, they did not recognize the best part of their song. They did not go back to that opening riff at the end of the song. They should have. They should have ended the song with the opening riff. But other than that, almost my favorite song on the album.
Okay, so they didn't go back to that riff they did at the beginning, but at 2:17, there's a very tasty guitar work. I would not say there's really a solo on this album, but that was just, I think, probably my favorite moment of the song. Maybe the whole album. I don't know. Just that one little section. It's not long at all, but it's just good. It's real good.
It's funny. We were talking about the bridges earlier. A lot of times the bridges on this album are where they lose me, because they will have these songs that are, at least to some degree, hooky and have like a melody or a rhythm that gets stuck in your head. And then the bridge will be this jun 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 and a bunch of screaming and dissonant guitars again. So I don't mind the bridge on this one because this is a shorter song. I say that, you know, it's still 4 minutes long, but it's for this album, that's about on par.
Okay.
But yeah.
If you ever write a book, you have to call it You Lost Me at the Bridge, just because I think that'd be fun.
That, on this album, that would be an acceptable title.
All right, so let's move on to talk about track 4, Keep Sweet. When I first started this album, first time I listened to it, I was okay with it. I didn't love it. But the album grew on me, especially this track. I did not like this one the first time I heard it. This one is definitely a grower, but I also feel like this is another attempt at mainstream appeal, at, you know, getting a radio song, if radio was what they're shooting for. Does radio even really play songs like this? I don't know. I haven't turned on the radio in a long time.
XM.
Okay, so satellite radio. So
I would say Perfect Soul and this one to an extent would slot in well on Octane, which is like the, you know, that's the station that's going to play Falling in Reverse and Bring Me the Horizon and those bands. So
right.
this would fit in well here. But I do like this song. Let me just clarify. I think this is a cool song. I like the opening riff. I like how the verse is almost broken into like two halves, where you've got like the super clean pop production, and then gets a little more traditional metalcore in the second half and chugs it up. But I already heard that. Palisades did it on the song Letdown. Issues did it on, I don't know, half their songs. So for me, this again just felt like, yeah, it's cool. I like it. But I've heard a lot of other bands do it already, and I kind of like those better.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on this one. I do feel like this was, you know, I feel like part of going for that mainstream appeal, going for that radio-friendly song is kind of borrowing or taking sounds from what other people are doing or have done and just kind of presenting it in this way. So I do like the electronic elements in this song, but, you know, this one is 4 minutes, 3 seconds, and I'll tell you the last the last minute. So 3 minutes, I was good with it, but then about the last minute, I was like, okay, you know, maybe this might just be a little too much, which I think actually goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning, where it's just filling that entire space, and it's like, okay, cool, all right. But her vocals are fantastic on this track. Mm-hmm. I do love her vocals here. She has got the hooks down.
Yeah, to an extent, because, like, for example, I think the chorus is really good. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's overly hooky, but it's big and it's bright and it feels really good in the moment. Like right this second off the top of my head, I cannot tell you what this chorus sounds like, but I remember listening to the song and really liking it.
Yeah.
And so that's that's not necessarily a bad place to be, because if stuff is too earwormy, it almost gets annoying, you know? Right. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I do really like the breakdown, or the bridge, whatever you want to call it, on this one. Starts around 2:35. I think that's really gnarly. I get why she screams during this section. Because we have a lot of clean vocal, this might have been a fun moment to try something clean. But I don't know. Like, I think this is a good song. This is one of the better ones on the album for me. But again, it's reminding me of so many other bands that I already listened to.
That's fair. All right, let's talk about track 5, Soft Spine. This is the song that created so much fuss, and I have listened to enough of both sides. Yeah, you brought up Mr. Radke in the beginning.
Right.
Okay, and so this one was quickly speculated at being about Radke.
Yes.
Now, I listened to an interview with her, and I pulled a clip from basically the article that was written about it. So, Courtney LaPlante recently sat down with the Zach Sang Show to discuss the hidden meaning behind their new single, Soft Spine, and what inspired her to write such a song. I'm not someone who likes to have a lot of outward drama, but internally, there's a lot of people that I just don't feel like that neutral in our industry about. She explained, I have full-on strong feelings towards them, and that song really made me feel like the fantasy that people have of the maximum stress that it could put on someone that they don't like. She continued, but of course, those things are just a fantasy. In reality, I don't have that power to metaphorically annihilate someone. I don't have that power leverage in my life right now. But the fantasy of feeling that you have that power professionally to rise above people that you don't like is very empowering to me. I hope someday it's not a fantasy, but a reality. The more social currency I have, the more professional currency I have to make actual change around who gets to take our nice listeners' hard-earned money and who doesn't. Sometimes negativity really drives people. So basically what she was saying and all that, and the way she summed it up afterwards, is this isn't about one single person, because a lot of people said it's about Radke. And she was like, no, it's not about one single person. It's just about the people in the industry that I really don't like.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's plenty of people in the industry that don't like her and don't like Spiritbox.
That's going to happen in any industry with anybody. So
especially when you're, I don't know, I would say your mid-tier metalcore bands are getting, 500,000-600,000 monthly listeners, and then you got a band like Spiritbox that gets 3.5 million monthly listeners, and you've got a singer like Courtney who's an attractive woman. Obviously that's going to, some people are going to think that it's more hype than they deserve because of, what she looks like. And me personally, I don't care. Like, I just like her voice, but at least in my opinion, I feel like they have really pushed that, like in their most recent music videos and stuff, where it's like, hey, check out our lead singer, like, not that she's wearing anything like super revealing or anything like that, but she's dressing more like a pop star than jeans and t-shirts. Like she was kind of, I guess she always kind of like dressed very feminine, but like back in the I Wrestled a Bear days, they were a lot sillier and, it was more fun. Whereas now it's obviously very serious. And yeah, I guess I didn't really know about the Radke beef until just recently, but the line in the song is, "You were made for each other." So I assumed it was about more than just one person, Now,
according to her, it's kind of a general overall statement about people in the industry she doesn't like, which, when you are in any, field of work, and this just happens to be her field of work, you're going to end up feeling some way about other people. And she just comes across all of the people that don't like her all the time. And she, I think it'd be hard to be in a band and not read every review. And, I mean, you've got your lifetime, musicians that have been around for, 40, 50 years that probably don't even put effort into it anymore. I'm pretty sure the Rolling Stones don't put out an album and eat up every review or, take the bad ones to heart. But I feel like maybe Spiritbox is still in that place, and that's still, the bad ones still affect them. Sure, they're writing about something that's on their mind. Fine. Yeah. Okay, I don't have a problem with it. But okay, let's talk about this song.
Yeah, but then I was going to say all that to say musically, this isn't very good.
I feel like this was a really good, heavy song, but it doesn't really give me any dynamics within this one. And I enjoyed it for what it is, but I didn't want to go back to it. But I did find something fun. And I just thought this was funny, so I wanted to put it in here. So, okay, I don't remember where I got it from, but they said, this one is just dumb fun. It's not great. It makes you want to bounce your head, maybe shove somebody or punch a puppy. And I was like, that's fun. I don't want to punch a puppy, but okay.
Yeah, to your point, this reminded me of Holy Roller, just without the dink face groove. Like, it's just very straight, beat you over the head, which, like you said, if that's what you're in the mood for, it works. This is where I thought of Bad Omens, because if you remember back to that song, Artificial Suicide, off of that Bad Omens album,
where you got mad that they put that as like the last track, and
God, they made me wait like 15 songs to give me the best thing ever. But I went back and listened to it just to refresh my memory, and if you listen to that, it is so heavy and it pummels you. But there are moments of just pure drop down. It sucks everything out, and it's just his voice. There's even one or two parts where they literally mute everything at the same time. And it's like, yeah, it feels cool in the moment because you're grooving and it kind of like adds this dynamic to it. But just generally speaking, those little moments give your ears a second to appreciate how heavy it is. When you just are non-stop, like this song is, it's like we talked about before. At some point, it kind of stops being heavy, you know?
Yeah. No, it's we've said it plenty of times that when it's heavy all the time, it's not heavy anytime.
But this is the one that has the little I Wrestled a Bear Once little guitar noodly stuff around 2:31 is kind of where it starts. I like that.
Okay, I did put the note down that if mathcore could chug, I feel like that's what this was. But I will, go along with what you're saying, that it's that little I Wrestled a Bear Once. I don't want to say kicking the door in, but poking his head in.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Obviously, this is a different band. It just happens to share a couple of members. I should not expect them to ever go into that. But just knowing what those I Wrestled a Bear Once albums were like, and then this is where they've gone now. Commercially, it's the right move. They're making a lot more money. They're playing much bigger things than they ever would have, staying with that I Wrestled a Bear Once style. But I wish they did a little more of it. I'm glad it's here. I just wish there was a couple more moments of it.
No, I agree. I agree, because I did enjoy I Wrestled a Bear Once. But let's move on to talk about track 6, Tsunami Sea. The title track. And I feel like it's a trend for them. And we've only gotten 2 albums, 2 full-length albums, Eternal Blue and this one. But I feel like it's a trend for them to make the title track more melodic. Because, I really appreciate they threw a slowdown at us after what we just got from track 5. So it is nice. But then they start throwing those big chugs in. And while we have talked about plenty of songs in the past where it is a slowdown, but they still have the big chugs in it, which Eternal Blue had a couple of those, I like those better. I didn't hate this one, but I didn't like this one until about 2:30.
I was trying to think what happens at 2:30, but it's not ringing a bell. I was waiting for you to tell me.
Okay, so up till 2:30, it just has this. It's like this melodic, Courtney vocal over, and it's a very clean. I don't think she does any dirty vocal in this whole song. This does feel like they're redoing kind of what we've heard in the past. Mm-hmm. Okay, the hooks are in this one, but around 2:30 is when I feel like we got where. What I had said before about, I feel like a lot of this album is they had, 2 different songs they were putting together. And I feel like we got that changeover at 2:30 because at 2:34, the guitars, the guitar work that's happening there is great. It's fantastic. The drums are just solid here, but they don't do anything flashy. They're solid. Like they kind of hold the space. But 4 minutes, 16 seconds. And I didn't really get into this one until about 2:30.
I have a lot of the same notes that I have on a lot of the other songs. It's kind of mid-tempo, genty riff. I do like that, like you said, she pretty much sings clean the entire song. Another one of those where the chorus is good. It doesn't wow me. It doesn't really stick with me. And in this case, actually, part of the chorus does stick with me, but for a negative. I feel like there's this auto tune on her voice. Yeah,
that was something I was going to come back to. I like her clean vocal except for where it's auto tuned.
And dude, I mean, some of the best singers in the world still have a little bit of that auto tune and melodyne, whatever it's called, on their vocal, and it's mixed in such a way that it's imperceivable unless you're just sucked in, focused, hyper focused on it. So not a big deal. And it's just, honestly, I feel like it was probably a choice to keep it a little bit digital to kind of give it a vibe. But I don't think it was necessary. I didn't particularly like that.
You know, I don't have an issue with in a studio if somebody is putting a little bit of auto-tune on their voice to, you know, to kind of get that little bit of extra, fine, whatever. Now, when you go overboard with it like T-Pain did, and I feel like it's worked against him, and, you know, in his case, because he is a phenomenal singer, I really like T-Pain's voice. In fact, he was on, I just watched the SNL music, or SNL concert. It's great. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, T-Pain shows up for, I don't know, all of 10 seconds. But he's singing and he sounds good. So, you know, I don't have a problem with auto-tune. I just don't like it when people use it as a crutch. And I do feel like it was used as a crutch here. And maybe that goes to the mixing of it where it just wasn't mixed right.
I don't know. It just sounds like more of the same. Like, I don't know. I like kind of the vibe. Like I said, my favorite Spiritbox is when they're playing chuggy riffs and she's singing clean on top. And this song has some of that. So I like that part of it. But again, it feels very meh. It feels very kind of standard metalcore, a soft metalcore song, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Track 7, A Heaven with Two Faces. Haven. Yes, a haven with two faces. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, weird.
Right. It's a different guitar in the intro on this one. It's more of a clean guitar. And
I like that.
I didn't hate it. In fact, I didn't hate this track at all. This is probably my favorite track off of the album.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So it does feel like it flows out of track 6. And this is one of the few places where I really feel like, you know, the tracks within this album actually flow together. Like I've talked about where I feel like there's certain places where it pairs well with Eternal Blue and all, but I feel like this one just kind of, we still got the clean vocal with Courtney, but I feel like the emotion in this song was cranked up, and I really feel like she was more impassioned on this one. Do you disagree with me? I feel like you do. Your face tells me you do.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think she sounds really good. I think because
I'm just bad at reading your face, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's. What do you mean reading my face? Look at this thing. It's not. It's a picture book.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what I'm going for.
I don't either. I don't. Yeah. Please talk about the song. I don't want to talk about your face anymore.
I have a face made for podcasting. I think I agree with you about her vocals, and I think the reason that it sounds that way is because the music is pulled back a little. Yeah. It's not so chuggy and distorted, so her vocals feel a little bit bigger, which I think is good. Another thing I really like is the rhythm of this song. I do believe it is still in 4/4, but it has a very 3/4 feel. It feels like a waltz almost.
Right.
Which has a nice vibe. They haven't done anything like that, you know, on this record. So I like all that. I kind of like the bridge where it's kind of mellow. But the first time I heard this song, as soon as it went into that mellow bridge, I was like, I know where this is going. I know it's going to happen. And it's just, here, when's it coming?
At 3:22.
At 3:22. Then we get the chuggy riffs and all the screaming. It's fine, but like, how many times have we said chuggy riffs with screaming? Like and I get it, it's a metalcore album. That's what's going to happen. Right. But it just feels repetitive.
That's fair. See, okay, I feel like we didn't get dirty vocals until 129. And it was just a little bit, and then she went back to clean vocals. And I feel like she was almost having trouble holding back the dirty vocal. And it's like, it just kind of came out. But then it just kind of goes back to the clean vocals again. And we really don't get the dirty vocals again until that breakdown at 3:22. But I feel like, you know, leading up to it, you know, okay, so we had that 4-tone guitar line Like, I don't feel like it was a synth. I feel like it was just a simple thing done on guitar. And it's like this is actually one that I put on headphones because it was like I wanted to pay attention to certain things in this one. And you can actually hear that guitar start, or that tone, that four tone, in the very beginning of the song, and it just slowly gets louder. And then it kind of takes over at 2:33. And then from 2:33 on to 3:22 is where the bridge exists, and then we get that heavy-ass breakdown. And I do like how she kind of faded into the background in the clean vocals within that whole part, but then she came in with the punch of the dirty vocals. But what I didn't like in headphones was that guitar in the last part of the song. While I really like the song, this is my favorite track off the album, I did not like that guitar in headphones because it just became twangy and it hit a frequency that it just was not comfortable.
Okay. Another thing too, the song is 5.5 minutes long.
Yeah. It's 5:31. Yeah, no, it's a long track, and I really feel like Tsunami Sea and A Haven with Two Faces was really written as one full piece of work.
I was going to say the same thing. It feels like that particular section almost feels like one 10-minute song more than two individual songs. And because of the tempo, even though I like a Haven with Two Faces more than Tsunami Sea, because they both have that slower tempo, again, I do like the waltzy feel, but it feels like it starts to drag by the time we're getting to the 4.5, 5 minute mark of this one.
Okay, so I will agree with you that this one could have really, like I said, breakdowns at 3:22. I didn't necessarily need the rest of it. I thought it was fine outside of headphones because that guitar just, killed my ears. But it wasn't needed. But I also feel like this was one where live, they probably extend that part out and jam it out a bit more. She gets a little screamy. Maybe she preaches a little bit, does her thing, whatever. I don't know. I feel like this was written as a really good studio track, but then it also plays well live because they can extend out that last part. They can kind of play with how the song's going to end live.
Maybe. I don't know. This, like, for me, if I went to go see them and they played this song, I'd probably be a little disappointed.
Yeah, that's fine. I would be excited because I really enjoyed that one. So anyway.
Well, good.
Track 8, No Loss, No Love. Now, we have talked plenty of times on this show about how you go and watch the videos, and I don't.
Yeah.
I went and watched this video on purpose. Did you watch this video?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The video for this one makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's so I kind of felt the same way I did with the Bad Omens videos. I feel like there's a way you're supposed to watch these, and like if you watch them,
it was Falling in Reverse, where you were talking about how there's a story to their videos, but you were watching them out of order or whatever.
Yeah, them too, but Bad Omens as well. They're okay. Like videos are all like mini movies. And I remember I thought the video for Perfect Soul was awesome. It reminded me a lot of The Last of Us because there's like this weird monster thing that's like walking around and stuff. So I dug that. But yeah, this is the one where she's like laying down and there's like close-ups of her face and like
it's like she's laying down on like the white cube. It's all in black and white, and it's like she's laying down.
All the videos for this album are black and white, which is another odd thing.
So it's like a white cube, but then it's like a grid of white cubes, but like the ocean is black, and then it's cut with like clips of them playing and like real quick clips. Like there's no like prolonged shot of them playing. Actually, I don't feel like there's a prolonged shot in the entire video, but then it's like close-ups of her face and like the makeup's all like overly done, and I don't know. And those parts are what made me uncomfortable because it's like at one point like half of her face is smeared and it didn't feel right. Right. But I think it was made to make me feel uncomfortable.
But to your point, those really quick cuts, it's like Coco Melon for metalheads.
Yeah, fair.
So I'll be honest, when this song started, I was very much like, all right, I'm done. Like, just I get it. Chuggy riffs, screaming. Okay, whatever. Like, I'm kind of over it. But then, at 48 seconds, let me ask you a question.
All right.
Have you listened to the new Lady Gaga album, Mayhem?
No, you're a bigger Gaga fan than I am.
I don't know this has ever really come up on this show before, but the first couple records, the Fame Monster, Born This Way, that whole era of even art pop, that era of Lady Gaga, I was pretty deep in. Like, I was all about it. Me and the wife went and saw her on the Monster Ball tour. Big into it. I kind of fallen off in the past few years because it got a little bit too straightforward, and I wanted the weird, creepy Lady Gaga. Mayhem is not great, but it's so good compared to her last couple albums. I say all that to say, at 48 seconds, I was like, this kind of sounds like the new Lady Gaga album, because it goes to this like techno beat, really weird vocals. Like, she's not really singing. She's basically just talking. And I don't love it, but I like it a lot. And it's something different that we haven't heard yet.
I was born in an estuary destined to the sea.
Where I talked about at the beginning that I feel like they were just trying different things, I feel like from here on in the album is them trying some different stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't heard, a helicopter intro. And
yeah, that's odd. Yeah.
I don't really feel like we've heard, Spiritbox do like techno breakbeats in a song ever.
Right.
And then they threw some deep screams on top of the breakbeats. Cool. But then the creepy spoken word parts, and then his pitch shifted guitar, like it felt. Okay, so this is one where I felt like I feel like it sounded more like an Acacia Strain song. It sounded like angry techno music, basically.
Yeah. I was going to say at one point, especially during those like more industrial kind of verses, it was almost giving me like KMFDM meets Lady Gaga. Now, I've also talked about guitar. KMF. Say that again?
KMFM Gaga.
KMFM Gaga. So you just skip the D?
Yeah.
That's not like you. You usually don't skip the D. You're usually a big fan of the D.
I knew you were going to go there.
Interesting. Now, well, I don't go there nearly as often as you do. So I've often talked about guitar tone, and a lot of these modern metalcore bands and just heavy metal in general, they have sort of this new guitar tone that doesn't sound like a guitar. It sounds like a wall of static.
Yeah.
I don't love that. Knocked Loose is the band that comes to mind the most. Them and Loathe. And there's one or two more that the guitar is just so that it's hard for me to like really like feel it. To their credit, Spiritbox actually has pretty good guitar tones for the most part. I like them. So when that section at around 145 starts, and the guitar just sounds like a computer being like ripped apart, I kind of like that, because some bands, that's their guitar tone, and 2 or 3 songs of that and I'm out. But because it's just sort of like right here, it has a little bit of this, like, it almost harkens back to I Wrestled a Bear once again. So I was kind of okay with that.
No, it was fine. I don't know. This was one where I kind of felt like I was saying before that I just feel like they were just trying something new. And I don't feel like they stuck the landing. But, okay, so if they were going for the bullseye, they hit like the second ring. It's like they still got on the board. It still kind of worked. She just sounds really pissed, and it's just, it's an angry techno song.
And we haven't really discussed the lyrics too much, because a lot of times these albums, if you don't have the lyrics in front of you, they're hard to really,
decipher.
Comprehend.
Yeah. Not like the Kings of Leon.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other problem.
Yeah.
But the line about, I was surrounded by pearls I could not eat.
Oh, yeah.
And diamonds I could not drink.
I was surrounded
I don't know what that means, but I don't like it.
Nope, I don't either. And I think the song makes me just as uncomfortable as it doesn't make me just as uncomfortable as the video, because that video just kind of, I don't know, about halfway through it, I was like, I'm not having fun anymore.
Yeah.
All right, track 9, Crystal Roses. This might be my least favorite Spiritbox song.
Interesting. I like this one a lot.
I knew you were going to. Okay, so
Yeah,
I will say
This
that
is more my speed.
yeah, I know. So I will say the intro is refreshing after track 8.
Yeah.
But this just feels like an overproduced pop song.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. And to your point about how Tsunami Sea and A Haven with Two Faces sort of like go into one another,
Right.
I think No Loss, No Love into Crystal Roses makes a lot of sense because of the modern pop characteristics of both.
Okay, see, I actually feel like Crystal Roses into the song after makes a lot more sense. Yeah, because I feel like this, track 9 and 10 on this one is where we just got where Spiritbox is trying their pop legs out.
Well, we'll get to 10 in a minute, and I have a lot to say about that one, actually. So, but on this one, the one thing that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but so you got this modern pop feel and everything's kind of rolling, and I knew it was going to kick in. Like, I knew at some point it's going to get heavy. They're not going to just do this for 4 minutes straight. I didn't think it was going to take up to 159. I thought it was going to come a little bit sooner than that. And I also expected it to be something a little bit more worth the wait. It just kind of, I don't know. I like it better at 222. Where it kind of picks up and she's singing a little bit faster and there's some cool guitar leads kind of mixed in with her behind her vocals. But ultimately, this kind of felt like an interlude that got a little bit out of hand.
I'll agree with you on that one. Yeah, I feel like it, maybe it was one of those, like, they had part of a song, and so, maybe it started as an interlude and then just kind of became a problem, especially when they threw that auto-tune onto her vocals, because I hate it on this one.
Yeah, okay, I will agree with you there. That is a little overboard.
Yeah, so, all right, I'm going to agree with you. This is an interlude that got out of hand.
I like that you said it was an interlude that became a problem. Yeah. I like the way you worded that.
Yeah, it's an interlude that became a problem. So
yeah, sure.
All right, track 10, Ride the Wave. This just feels like a mid-90s girl pop song that's just been updated. No, you're not happy about my statement. No, you're now the problem. You're an interlude that became a problem now.
That was the problem when this whole thing started. I think that this is their, I hate to say their attempt at, but this is the Spiritbox version of a Sleep Token song.
See, I said this is the Spiritbox version of a Poppy song.
Well, and what did we agree on about Poppy? She's a big fan of sort of poppyizing other artists. So this to me...
She's a big fan of stealing what other people are doing. Yeah.
She's not stealing. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to defend Poppy. Although, did you see whenever they spoke to Poppy on the red carpet at the Grammys and she looked a lot like Courtney LaPlante? That was crazy.
So actually, I was watching an interview with her where she was talking about how when she walked up for that, like it was just kind of her turn and they called her Poppy. She had a quick dialogue in her head where she went, okay, in our world, in the metalcore world,
Yeah,
that's a big offense, but they don't know the difference here. I mean, I forget who she said was just before them, but her reasoning on that makes sense. And
she took it like an absolute rock star. Like the fact that she just owned it and played along and smiled. Perfect. If you don't like Courtney LaPlante and you watch that, you will like her more because that was awesome.
What I appreciate about that is her reasoning was, this will be funny.
Yeah, and she's exactly right. Like, she just got, I agree, I don't remember who she mentioned, but it was somebody like Beyonce or something. Like, these people are looking at A-list Hollywood royalty, and here comes the metal girls. Like, they don't expect to be necessarily recognized like that. So I did really like that she kind of played along with that. But back to this song. So
it's just the Canadian of being overly nice in her.
What's this about? So I really like that guitar that starts the song. And the reason I do is because it is a slightly, like, I don't want to use the word dance here, but it's a slightly more up-tempo play on the song Hypnosis by Sleep Token. Which I believe is track 2 off of This Place Will Become Your Tomb. And it's like a 1-for-1. Like, it's so similar. It's played at like a different rhythm, but it's so similar that I just could not unhear it again. But I like it. I mean, I do like the rhythm, and I like the clean guitar. It's something we haven't heard again.
Right.
But here's where they kind of fall short. At 45 seconds, when that chorus kicks in,
yeah,
it does not have the gravitas of a Sleep Token chorus.
No.
And part of that is because we do have this almost... Oh, I know you like this word. It almost has like a jaunty beat to it. So, it kind of has that going. So when the chorus hits, they could have like dropped the tempo in half and been like this big, slow, epic chorus. Again, Sleep Token, because I personally feel that's what they're shooting for here. But it just doesn't land.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I feel like from 217 on, this actually got better. I really liked from 217 on. I do like the build out of the bridge. I think it's fun. And I do like her dirty vocals on the other side of it. But I don't feel like this one stuck the landing. And this is another one where I feel like, okay, so track 9 was the interlude that became a problem. And so it's like they tried to recover it in the first part of this song. And then they tried to Spiritbox it up in the last part of the song, and it just came out a problem.
Okay. So I'm
getting very excited.
Yes, because here's another really weird sounds like, and I meant to look it up and I forgot to. It is an actual song by an actual band, but the section that starts at 217 and it just kind of builds and it's kind of that eerie guitar again sounds so much like 28 Days Later. I think it's the part near the beginning where Cillian Murphy is walking around and he's realizing that there's nobody around and all of that spooky shit's going on. And there's this like hum in the background that eventually becomes like this guitar lick. And it starts to build and eventually turns into like a big rock song, but they don't do that for the movie. And the way this builds with that eerie guitar felt so much like 28 Days Later, and I appreciated that.
Well, good luck to me to find that sound clip to put in here.
Yeah, you've got your work cut out for you because I expect it to be here, but
I'm going to disappoint you.
You usually do. Yeah. So then,
I'm consistent.
Speaking of being disappointed, that section from like 306 to 351. It just felt like noise.
Yeah.
Because because this, again, the Sleep Token comparison, I might be way off. Maybe they've never heard Hypnosis by Sleep Token. Maybe they've never heard of Sleep Token. They're a little bit underground in this genre. So maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here, but
I don't think Sleep Token's underground in any genre anymore.
they are the Taylor Swift of metalcore.
Yeah, which Emergence topped the charts. Like, it's beat out tons of people.
Yeah, I saw the headline. It overtook Selena Gomez, and it was like, or Demi Lovato or somebody was like,
I think both.
Oh, Sleep Token is the metalcore Taylor Swift. Wow, okay. That 306 to 351 section.
Would you have a Taylor token? Go on.
Or,
Please go on.
Swift Sleep. Sleep Swift. I hate it. So shut up. So from 306 to 351 is where Sleep Token would have just pummeled you with this riff. But if you think about Sleep Token riffs, they're not complex. They're usually just a couple notes chugged, but because of the elegant piano and the weird time signatures, they feel just gigantic.
No, it's the drums that make it feel complicated.
Well, exactly. That's true. But in this case, it just comes across as more of the same. It doesn't have that dynamic feel. Like, it feels like it's going to build into something big and special, but it just kind of builds into more Spiritbox. It doesn't, I don't know.
All right, so let's round the album out. Track 11, Deep End. All right, so we're going to round it out with just some solid drum work. Not flashy, just solid drum work. But I kind of feel like this is like they're trying to capture the ending, the last track of Eternal Blue. And I like that one better than this one. It kind of feels like just they're rehashing. I don't know. There's just nothing about this one that really jumped out to me. And I mean, I told you before, like this, like 8, 9, 10, 11, just I really wasn't feeling it. I feel like this was just them trying out something new.
The semester's over. I'm putting my books in boxes. My parents are waiting for me in the minivan. Our cycles are no longer synced up. I'm back, in my hometown. This is probably my favorite song on the album. I feel like the song starts with these great big warm chords. We haven't heard anything like that. It's not a chicka-da-ding down to chicka-ding. It's not like a weird djenty riff. It's actually like just a competent rock chord progression. I like that the first chorus that kicks in around 43 seconds is just instrumental. There is no vocal on top of it. It's got those big heavy guitars, but it's got these like twinkly pretty leads behind it. And your thing about the drums, it's funny when the chorus kicks in at 122, like the proper chorus with Courtney singing on it and stuff. Right. The drums mess me up because I wish the drums would have been just a little bit more straight. But I guess they were feeling like this song is too simple. They had to do something to try to,
chop it up and
a little bit. Yeah. So I would have liked it a little more smoothed out, but I don't know. Like, I think it's a killer chorus. I like this one a lot.
So the chorus is good here, but I feel like everything outside the chorus just, I don't know. It just didn't really get me on this one. I feel like the last third of this one was just kind of put together of other songs.
Well, so what I will say is, so the last really, well, I don't know, because there's this one part at like 143 where she's singing something about my own waves. And there's this just nice like riff with her right there. I dig all of that. I think that's a great moment. And then we get this cool little acoustic guitar outro. Again, we haven't heard much acoustic guitar at all, and I like that a lot. But to your point, Let me take a look. This song is
3 minutes, 47 seconds.
okay. The song is really over by like 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
Right.
And then we just kind of have this like kind of slow meandering acoustic guitar thing that kind of I did have my loop thing selected on Spotify.
Right.
It doesn't loop perfectly back into the first song, but it sort of does. It's not way out of whack the way this one fades out and the first one fades in. But
yeah, I let it loop as well, and I kind of feel the same way. Like, it wasn't a perfect fit. It wasn't jarring out of place, even though track 1 is quite heavy on this album. Okay, I did like the acoustic guitar. I thought it was nice that they threw that in. I feel like that's a great way to close it. Yeah. Because it is a sound, like you said, it's a sound that we haven't really heard. But I do feel like that guitar ends too abruptly. It just kind of stops. And that bothered me in it. It's like I liked it, but then it stopped like that. And I'm like, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think exactly how it does kind of end. Because I sort of remember it sort of fading out into the sort of like waves and weird production noises that sort of fade out. Well, sort of fade into the beginning song or whatever. I don't know, dude. This one, I guess, because it's funny that you would say those like last 4 or 5 is sort of when you were checking out, because for me, I like track 3, but the first handful of songs I was kind of on, and then this back half they start to kind of experiment with a few things. But for me, I do really like this song, and like I said, I like a lot about Ride the Wave before it, but this feels too little too late.
And so I kind of felt like when I was listening to it, I was going, I was just going to like this back part more than I do. I'm not sold on it. So
I like that the last song just doesn't have a ton of screaming and a ton of genty riffs. Like, at least it's a little bit something else.
It does feel more like a closer for this album.
Yeah,
I will say that. So, all right, Monster, let me ask you a question. What's new with you?
Hey, good looking. What you got? Cooking.
You know what's funny is on Eternal Blue, I think I had like 2 or 3 songs in mind and was sort of like, this one's a little bit, this one's a little bit, but no, Perfect Soul. Perfect Soul is the only song here that feels predominantly nu metal. Like there's 1 or 2 riffs here or there, but this doesn't have a ton of new on it, which, I mean, honestly, because it doesn't bounce and groove nearly as much as Eternal Blue did, clearly I'm not going to love it quite as much. So, yeah, Eternal Blue.
Okay.
Danger, what's cooking?
A Haven with 2 Faces. I genuinely just love that song. And it being a, 5-minute song really kind of gives space to cook. So,
sure.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to go first on this one with your closing statement?
Yeah, I can go first. That's fine. This is sort of a danger pick more than a monster pick. So
was it? I just remember we were looking at albums that were coming out and going, okay, let's do this one, and it was okay. We did Spiritbox before, so let's do Spiritbox again. So anyway,
yeah, I suppose. All right, so Tsunami Sea by Spiritbox is a tough one for me. I like bits and pieces of most of the songs, but I don't know I can say I truly enjoyed one full song from start to finish. I enjoyed the majority of their 2021 album, Eternal Blue, but for me, Tsunami Sea is a step backwards. Eternal Blue felt more adventurous and experimental. Tsunami Sea feels a little more like a standard metalcore album, and the parts I liked the most usually reminded me of other bands or other songs I'd rather be listening to. This isn't a bad album, but it lacks dynamics at times. It's noisy and sometimes abrasive. Sometimes listening to an album multiple times will help me get more into it. I was having the opposite effect on this one. The more I listened to it, the less into it I was becoming. The production feels muddier, the hooks are less memorable, and the X factor that is Courtney LaPlante feels too buried in the mix. Spiritbox's fan base continues to grow, and they are obviously still a band on the rise. I look forward to hearing what they do next, and hopefully they continue to strive to stand out amongst their metalcore peers instead of trying to blend in with them. 1 to 10, I said 5.19. Danger, would you like to conclude with your statement?
After the 5 listens that I gave this one, I have to say that I am a mix of surprised, shocked, and also satisfied. They tried to step up from Eternal Blue, and that's what they did. Spiritbox really tried to step outside of what they did before, but they also did it kind of clumsily. The first listen I gave this one, I wasn't stoked about listening to it again. It had to grow on me. After Eternal Blue, Spiritbox became a grower, not a shower. It may have some growth left in it, though. But this feels like a really good EP is in here. It has its moments, but they are mostly relegated to the first half. In the end, what Mike and Zev are doing is worth coming back for. Josh is holding a strong spot on bass without overstepping the flow. And as for Courtney, she does what she does, and that helps make this band what it is. As for about half this album, choices were made, and they put them on a record. This album is not going to be for everyone, but if you like progressive music that happens to be of the heavier variety, then it's worth checking out. As for me, I will pick the first half and probably keep those in rotation, but in the end, I'm going to disagree with Mr. Radke. He just said this album is ass, and I'm going to disagree. I don't think it's ass. I think it's more of a lower back. I gave this album a 6.89. So, Monster gave Spiritbox Tsunami Sea a 5.19, and I gave it a 6.89, which gives it an average of 6.04, putting it into the 51st position, just below Post Malone F1 Trillion and just above Weird Al Running with Scissors.
Okay, so clearly that doesn't make sense. But guess what? I would buy front row tickets. That would be, I'd be in heaven. I would just be having the time of my life.
It would be a fun one, but you're right. It would not make any sense.
Wow, that'd be, what a mix of people. Like, that crowd would be hilarious and terrifying.
Oh yeah. So if you disagree with the score that we've given this album, then please shoot us an email at breakdownsbreakfast@gmail.com or head on over to one of our social media platforms, Facebook, X, or Instagram, Breakdowns for Breakfast across all of those. Go check out our YouTube channel and let us know what you think about those. I mean, we're putting out some videos there. Monster's second breakfast series, we're putting out videos of each of those, along with the audio if you just want to listen to that.
Like I said, I have a face for podcasting, so feel free to just listen to them. You don't need the video component on those.
No, but we give you the option.
Well, and we actually give you 2 YouTube options. You can either just stare at the really cool logo Danger made, or you can watch me aimlessly stare at my Word document and check my phone while I'm talking. So either way, the choice is yours. Danger, what's a ghost's favorite cereal? And you have 2 chances at this.
I don't want to take one. What?
Boo Berries or Scream of Wheat?